UFC 320 is only days away, and I wanted to come here and break down Alex Pereira and Magomed Ankalaev. Honestly, the thing is, to me, this fight is existential for Alex Pereira. This could be redefining his ceiling at light heavyweight and even his place in the UFC, his legacy. I'm going to get into it all, but first, I want to get into the time machine, go back to December of 2024. If you remember that time, everyone was talking about how shallow the division was. Alex had beaten everyone who could be considered a challenger at that time. I mean, dismantled Jamal Hill, beat Yuri not once, but twice. The fight with Roundtree, it was an absolute war, but at the time, Roundtree was ranked eighth. So after the loss to Alex, it's like, okay, you can't run that one back, at least for a while. Even Polish power Jan Blankowicz ran out of energy against Poatan. You couldn't even throw one of those mainstay veterans at him. And keep in mind, this is all before Carlos Ulberg had beaten Jan, so proving himself to be sort of the next potential man up, as we saw against Dominic Reyes, which is pretty much where he is now. So the other thing that I want to sort of frame here is not to forget the meteoric rise that Poatan had been on during that streak. I mean, when he beat Yuri for the first time, it was only November 2023. So he won the title and then had three title defenses all within an 11-month time span. I mean, this guy had literally doubled his Instagram followers up to like 7 million. John Anik agrees. Alex Pereira was the biggest star in the UFC going into that fight with Ankh. And for Ankalaev, all of the talk at that time was how the UFC didn't want to give him a title shot. He was on an 11 fight unbeaten streak himself. And honestly, very similar to Bilal Muhammad, where he's unpopular, not very charismatic, but eventually, as does occasionally happen in the UFC, meritocracy won out, only because if not Ankalaev, then who? And I mean, frankly, if all the rumors were true, we can kind of see why the UFC was right to be afraid of this matchup. I mean, Big Ank obviously beat Pereira. But more than that, he stripped away some of the mystique. Pereira was this stoic, intimidating character, someone built in a Hollywood movie script, honestly, which is probably why he's now going to be starring in a Hollywood movie. Um, but now that he lost, if he can't redeem himself, I don't know. It's kind of like, how do you view Superman before the concept of kryptonite was introduced? He was unbeatable. He would just destroy everybody. The thing is, I mean, for Pereira, if he loses this rematch with Ankalaev, it's it's got to be a move to heavyweight. I just don't see any other realistic scenario for him if he catches another loss. Because even if he does go to heavyweight, like what's the ceiling there? How does the UFC benefit most from having him compete in that division? He's already publicly stated that he's spoken to the UFC about moving to heavyweight, and they were lukewarm in the past. He has also said that he would only consider moving to heavyweight if it starts to become too hard to make the weight cut. But that he is seriously about making the move. It's part of what makes me think it's the most realistic scenario if he loses. Look, Potan's rumored to walk around anywhere from like 230 to 245. Heavyweight officially 205 to 265. So you got like Tom Aspinall, Volkov, Cyril Gahn, Curtis Blades. Like these guys are fighting at around 250. They're probably walking around at 15, 20 pounds more than that, which would make Alex smaller by about 10 pounds, at least in comparison to the top of the division. But there is precedence for this, right? Like Stipe Miocic was fought at around 240 pounds. Realistically, that's where Alex would come in. But I guess here's why this outcome could develop into one of the most compelling storylines that we've seen in a few years. No one's ever won a belt in three divisions. So the UFC could, if they wanted, give Alex a few favorable matchups at heavyweight. You know, someone like a Volkov, a Pavlovich. Step up would be a Cyril Gahn. The idea being that you give him people who are going to stand and bang with him as opposed to try to grapple him, which, as we've seen, really negates his striking capabilities. And I'm not surprising anyone here by saying that. If they wanted to test his grappling abilities at heavyweight, you could see an Almeida or a Blades. But, you know, similar to light heavyweight, the heavyweight division just doesn't have a deep talent pool. So moving Alex Pereira there could solve some problems. One or two wins, then you're up against a Tom Aspinall, which, you know, would be a huge fight. And also one that Alex would be an extreme underdog. There's no question there. If all that were to materialize, I think it would be setting up as Poatan's last fight in the UFC. If he wins, could retire the champ or hold on to the belt for a couple of years like John Jones and not fight anybody who wants to be a dick about it. And if he loses, there's just nothing else left to do. He's out. But what if he beats Ankalaev? That is also a possibility. I mean, Poatan's career has been defined by rivalries. His career arc is redemption. I mean, obviously, the rivalry part, the most notable was Izzy. Pereira was his nemesis at kickboxing. The knockout by Izzy at 287 with the arrow throw, one of the most iconic moments in the sport, like at all, in my opinion. But all things said, this will make the 8th time in Alex Pereira's career that he gets either a rematch or a trilogy fight with someone that he's fought before. And going back to glory days, Cesar Almeida, Jason Wilness, Yusri Balgori, he lost all 3 of those and came back to get his revenge. So if he can beat Ankh, the narrative after the fight would be one of resiliency. Never give up. Get knocked down 9 times, get back up 10. You could just kind of see it written in stone already. It would be an even more inspirational story. Suffer defeat and come back after being counted out. I mean, Ankalaev is the favorite in this matchup, rightly so. If he completes the comeback, you have to keep him at light heavyweight, right? I mean, we mentioned him before, but there's only one other fighter at light heavy who has the shine to stand in Alex Pereira's light. You match him up with Carlos Ulberg, and then let the chips fall where they may. Then you could move him to heavyweight, maybe. Juice the legacy. I mean, that would be if he could pull off the absolutely unthinkable and beat Ankalaev and then move up to heavyweight, get a couple fights, beat Tom Aspinall. I mean, my God, I'm not betting on it, but you want to talk about Cinderella story. I don't know, a loss, and you kind of give him another rematch. We rerun the same questions. Can he do it again? Story of his career. You know, if he fights Ulberg and loses, then you just re-roll a rematch and, you know, back to the same record. I don't know. I mean, in closing, I guess I just kind of want to address some of the stuff that I've seen people talking about this rematch. You know, like, oh, this is the fight none of us wanted. First fight was so boring. Ankalaev has a bad matchup. Look, I know he got stunned in that first fight. I know that Ankalaev had him on the back foot for basically 80% of that fight. But Alex Pereira won round 1, and he won the 5th round. People can say what they want. Alex was traveling like crazy. He had all of those press appearances. I mean, he was cornering Sean Strickland for some reason, filming movies, showing up in Australia a month before his fight. Poatan says that he structured his camp around all of these things and that he's done so in the past, but it's also a fact that he got sick and contracted norovirus around that time. We haven't gotten any clear answer on the rumor of his hand being compromised, whether it was broken, what it was exactly. But in his own words, he was 40% for that fight. Ankalaev used his little bouncing feints to great effect. It did throw off Poatan. You'd be an idiot to think that the threat of that takedown didn't affect the fight, to be honest. Ankalaev has faster hands and is clearly at home operating as a counter striker. He had Pereira's number that night. There's no question. I'm not making excuses, but there is a difference in hunger between being the hunter versus the hunted. And like I said before, Pereira has suffered losses and he's come back and rebounded. This is not a new thing for him. It's not new territory. He knows what it feels like now to be in the cage with Ankalaev. Big Ank isn't unbeatable either. We did see him limping in that first round after those calf kicks. Jan Blankovic chewed his legs to shreds when they fought. Look, all I'm going to say is that history shows us no matter how the first fight plays out, rematches rarely follow the same script. Just ask Kamaru Usman and Leon Edwards. Shama.